scholarship recipients and bring them up here. Today, I get to bring them out and actually talk to 2 of them. So we did our scholarship again this year. We had 15 people that applied from 5 different universities. And with that, we chose 5. If you have heard this before, we do not know who we're looking at. We're looking at numbers and their essays. And we choose the ones that do. And then today, I get to announce 2 of them that are going to come out here and talk with me. So, Nemaya, come on out. Nemaya Hicks. And Michael Meyering. Michael, come on out and join me. All right. So, let's start off really simply with what school are you attending and what year are you in?
Okay. I'm attending Eastern Michigan University, and I'm currently a senior.
And you're studying?
Information assurance and cyber defense.
Thank you. And Michael?
I'm a freshman at U of M Dearborn, and I'm studying cybersecurity and information assurance.
Excellent. All right. So now, when we sent out the application, you had to write up a bunch of stuff about yourselves and submit that in hopes that you could get a scholarship from us. With that said, what do you think there was in the application that you wrote that those of us that were reading it not having any idea who you were, what do you think made us choose you? Nemaya, we'll start with you.
Okay, I think what chose me was I made my application more personable. I talked about family movie night and how I actually got into cybersecurity. It was a movie called The Net with Sandra Bullock, if you didn't know. Really good movie, 10 out of 10. And that's what I did. I made it personable, and I think people like that. And I kind of threw in a little joke about not wanting my identity to get stolen, little reference to the movie, but I just made mine personable.
And I do remember that one. I didn't know it was you until just now, but I did remember that one. How about you, Michael?
I think I just focused on like what personally has drawn me as well. Like kind of just, I guess media is a good thing, but also just like seeing like how the world has changed in this past couple of years through like AI and through just all of this new like going to, I've been to like a few conferences. This is my second CXO conference I've attended. I've attended GERCON and Secure World. So I just like see all these companies that are like helping these like organizations secure themselves, and it's like almost inspiring to me. Like I can make such of a deep impact just like working a job. That's kind of what inspired me to be more interested in it.
Yeah. Now we heard, as I said, this whole timeline that Tim gave us. So taking us back into the past. Obviously, neither of you experienced much of what he was talking about because it was before you were born. There were several of us in the room that did experience a lot of it. But let's look ahead in the next 10 years. We won't even go with the whole timeline that Tim used. Let's just go ahead 10 years. What do you see the challenges that you're going to face when you get into the industry? Do you think they're going to be what they are today? Do you think they're going to change?
Okay, I'll go first. I think what's going to change is just malware, and there's new threats, and everything's new every day. There's something new. So I think that's definitely going to change. You need to want to learn for the next 10 years and the rest of your life, and that's why I do like cybersecurity. It's always something new. It's never the same thing. You might wake up one day and half the world's falling apart, We saw Amazon and how they were down and chaos. So I think, something new is always going to be a new threat. So that's what I see changing.
Yeah. Michael?
Yeah, I think that like zero-day factor is going to always be a big part of it. Is just all these new and things, and especially with AI, maybe at some point it'll be able to like develop full like more malware, which is scary to say, but I mean that's in the future. I mean that's what we got to think about. Just thinking of all the ways we need to prevent that.
Yeah. All right. Now, I keep referring back to things that Tim said, and I'm going to refer back to his idea of design thinking. And he said we needed to be able to fail and fail fast. Now, in your world today, can you fail? Can you fail fast?
I'm in college, so failure's not an option for me. I can't afford to fail. But in the future, I do hope to fail and learn from those things and get back up quickly.
Good. Michael?
Yeah, and I think a big part of that is also college is designed for you to not fail. So it's hard to implement that thinking now, but it's definitely something that we have to think about and we have to use is failure.
Absolutely. So if you talk to very many of the people in the room here today that are in the industry, they all have different aspects of their job. So cybersecurity is such a vast area. You know, whether we're talking about audit, we're talking about governance, we're talking about incidents. You know, there's just so many things. Have you started to think about what it is you want to do, at least to start off with?
Yeah, so I do actually want to start my career off as a network engineer. I do hope someday to end up as a cloud architect. I don't know the in-betweens, what jobs I'll have in between, but I do know I would like to start as a network engineering.
Okay, Michael?
Yeah, I'm really interested in the blue side of things. SOC. I mean, SOC analyst would be a good place to maybe like think about ending up. Maybe hopefully like junior SOC analyst could be a starting point for me. But yeah, definitely like blue team cyber defense related things.
All right. And then taking it from there, so starting off, and I'll start with you, Michael, starting off as a junior SOC analyst, where do you aspire to go from there?
That's hard. I mean, hopefully, I mean, it could take me anywhere, but you know, just being a senior, so hopefully to be like, I think this program is a great thing. I'm hoping to get connected here once I'm in the workforce, and hopefully also be able to help mentor, because I do love mentoring, and I think that's a great aspect that we need to really focus on. I think that's why this is a great organization.
Okay. And
The next thing I actually don't know, like I said a little bit earlier. But like you said, I do hope to get connected and kind of see like, oh, this is a thing. Oh, kind of get into that a little bit more as well.
I think most of us know how important networking is. And the fact that you're here today and you're getting the opportunity to network with people here, prior to applying for the scholarship, did you get out and network with any cyber organizations, groups, events like this before?
Yes, actually, I attended the conference in May, and that's how I found out about you guys. Some guy named Joe was in my LinkedIn, and I applied. And also, I'm in WeSees, shout out to them. Yeah, we had a Consumer Energy come, and we networked with them as well.
Yeah, like I kind of stated, I've been to a few conferences, Secure World, I've been to GERCON a couple of times, and I think those are great organizations. There's a lot of them everywhere. And I think that's a great way of staying connected. But also, I think you need to look at school. If your school for like college students, if you have like a club, if there's any like AI clubs are good clubs, especially right now. I know there's a lot of those. But yeah, I think that's a great way to network as well, just in your local community.
Absolutely. All right, how about, I know we've got a lot of students here today, which is wonderful. So they're learning a lot. They're getting the opportunity to talk with the vendors. They're getting the opportunity to talk with those people that are in the industry as well. But what advice do you give them for possibly applying for a scholarship for next year? Because we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, too.
Yes, one thing I actually wish I would have done with my scholarship, but I didn't because of time, was submit a video. I really kind of wanted to do that. Obviously, I didn't get the opportunity to, but definitely, you know, make it personable. Talk about yourself, be authentic, you know, and submit the video because you never know.
Yeah, I do remember the video was like a big part that I focused on specifically, because I remember in May the recipients said something about, like, mentioned the video specifically, and I'm gonna do the same thing. Definitely focus on the video, because I feel like I did focus on the video, and maybe that's helped, maybe that's not. That wasn't up to me, but I think the video helps, and also, yeah, keeping it personable and focusing on really what you're passionate about.
Yeah, so we will be, in May, we will be taking our next scholarship round. So for those students that are out here, remember that, keep looking out for it. And I think that beyond the financial side of things, so obviously the scholarship helped with the financial side. The scholarship also comes with a one-year mentorship, which they haven't begun yet. But what do you see as something that, other than financial, that the scholarships helped you with?
Yeah, so I'm actually looking forward to the mentorship, to kind of see someone in the field already and get guidance on that. That's really exciting to me.
Yeah, I'm also very excited. I've met a few of the board members here. They all seem very wonderful people. I enjoyed talking to them already. So I'll see who my mentor is. It's on someone on the board, correct? Yes. I'm excited to meet them and build a better connection with them.
Yeah, I had the opportunity of mentoring one of the scholarship recipients from last year, and it was interesting because I didn't know for sure, what I was going to be able to provide to him to help him. And I showed up at one of the CXO events, and he came up to me because I really want to talk to you tonight. And I said, okay. So we stepped out, and we sat down, and we talked. And his biggest thing was, I've got three ways I can go once I get out of school. And he goes, I'm not sure what I want to do. And so he was asking me, and he went through and he told me. So make sure that when you have your mentor, that you come to them with things that you want, as well as them coming to you with advice. But ask the questions, and make sure you stay very engaged with them. So other things, and I just lost there's my time. I think we're going to go ahead with the time that we've got here and ask if any of the students have questions for our scholarship recipients. So the students, you guys have been really quiet all day. You haven't asked any questions. I know I've seen you out there talking with people. But how about some questions for our two recipients here? Anything at all? Don't be scared.
I'll go first. Like I said, the net actually inspired me. It's like with this field and this major I'm studying, there's not just one thing you can do. It's like a puzzle. There's all these little pieces, but when you put them together, it's this big picture. And to me, that's interesting. Like, I never want to go in and be bored. You want to go in and love what you do, and I love to learn. So for me, that's what drives me. It's like you're always learning. You have to be teachable, and it's always something new.
Yeah, you gotta make sure you keep up on like all of the newest things. There's always something. There's always a new article. There's always a new malware. There's always a new virus that you have to know about. For me, I think just the ability to put it with any it can go with. Cyber is related to any subject. It could be automotive. It could be medical. It could be anything. There's always going to be cyber related. So I think the flexibility there, where you can choose which industry specifically you want to be in as well and make an impact in as well, is very beneficial. And you can change on the fly. You could start in automotive and end up in aerospace. So I think that's also very cool. That interested me as well.
All right, we have a question back there.
Yeah, do you guys have any ways of learning outside of the classroom that you maybe can share?
I was on a Cyber Patriots in high school, and they have a Cyber Sentinel thing, monthly release that I like to read a lot. It's very beneficial. Cyber Sentinel, if you want to look that up. I like reading that personally, but there's just Google websites that just publish articles on new technologies.
And for me personally, I like YouTube, so I'll learn on YouTube and things like that. I know right now I'm trying to get in the process of building my own home lab so I can study for the CCNA, so I can, obviously get into the industry a little bit easier. But yeah, just obviously get on YouTube, get on LinkedIn Learning, network, talk to your professors. That's a big thing too. They've been in the industry for years on years. So it's nice to see a little bit of guidance and how they got into it and things like that.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of organizations that you can get involved with, and there's one that is just recently starting to allow students in, and we have one of the first students here in the room that was able to join that organization, and he was at the May event, and we talked back then, and at that point in time they weren't, but Infragard, which, if you have not heard of Infragard, and you sound like you have.
Yes, I have.
Good. But they are now accepting students. So I think that's a great way to be able to learn more from your question. You get to get information from the FBI. and learn about, the threats and things that are going on. So I'm thrilled that they're allowing students in. So, all right. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, right here, Ryan.
Just a statement I wanted to say because I think about something. You both mentioned that you're students, so you didn't want to fail. And obviously, you don't want to fail your classes, but I think this is probably the greatest time to try and fail. I mean, you're not going to get fired for it. There's so many different paths you can try. As an intern. Technology, you can try, right? I think a lot of us here in this room, we maybe not were even intending to be security people when we were students. The interest we had when we were students might not be what we're doing now, but we tried a lot of different things, and some of them were failures for sure. But now it's the cost now to try and fail. So try.
Thank you.
That's excellent advice. All right. Anyone else in the audience? Not just students. Anyone have some advice for these two? Oh, right up there. Okay. Yes, Benjamin.
I mean, on that same note, like, don't be afraid to go, like, when you're in the industry and working in there, you can't be afraid when you make a mistake, just don't up it. I've dropped 24,000 emails into a quarantine in the space of 4 minutes before, which was, by the way, every email in the company. And I owned up to it. It took me 7 hours to get those all released, by the way. But the difference is, I immediately went and said, hey, this happened. We're going to get phone calls because, by the way, those were involved in things like ACH processing and things that aren't very important like that. And no one cared. Like, literally nothing happened. There wasn't anything on record. There wasn't a don't do that again type thing. It was a, okay, well, you're fixing it. And, yeah, we got directors and people at C-level were asking what happened to all these emails. Yeah, it was only 4 minutes, but again, there was a lot of emails in that 4 minutes. No one cares. As long as you own up, that's the difference. You're going to make mistakes. I've dropped a production database before a long, long time ago. I had backup. You don't even know what to say. It was a long time ago. We're past the statute of limitations. But I mean, that's the biggest thing is own your mistakes.
Yep.
Like, don't hide from them. Don't cover them up. As long as even if you can't fix it, as long as you told someone, you're gonna get another chance.
That's great advice, too. So as we're finishing
can
up
I
here.
comment
Yeah,
on that
please
really
do.
quick? I agree with that, and I think that's great for the workplace. But like I kind of was trying to that was kind of my point. In college, it's designed for you to not fail, and it's kind of hard to own up to you not like turning in an assignment or something, and like you can't just say, hey, I didn't turn in the assignment. Can I turn it in now? Like it's designed to not do that. And that's a bad example, but that was kind of my point. It's college is designed so you can't.
But to draw a parallel to that, I would say there's a lot of times where a lot of people go through and you can get by and you can pass it, but maybe you don't fully understand that people are, run into a lot of people, I've mentored some of them who are afraid to go to the teacher and be like, I don't get that concept. Can you explain that concept differently? And that would be my parallel there. Is don't be afraid to go and say, hey, that doesn't make any sense to me. Can you explain it in a different way? I'm not getting it that way. A good teacher will say yes.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
All right, we got one more right over here.
Just a piece of advice or a suggestion. I encourage you to always learn how things work in IT. So, as part of our field in information security, it's wide reaching, right? It covers everything in IT and even beyond. And so, especially at your early stages of your career, learn how servers work, learn how workstations work, printers, every type of electronics. Because at the end of the day, you need to be protected, and you need to sometimes troubleshoot how it works in order to fix it. So I just encourage you, like building your lab, that's a great idea. Even if it's a small lab to begin with, because you're not building some big one, but just start small, Raspberry Pi, something, and tinker with it. Because once you're in InfoSec, you're always, to your point, there's always a new challenge, and you're always dealing with something.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right, so I mentioned earlier that there were five recipients. There are 3 that weren't able to be here today. Braden Queensberry, he's at Michigan Tech. Madi, I can't see this, Bora at Eastern Michigan. And Monique Hammond at Walsh College. So amongst those three, they are also receiving what Sydney's going to bring out here. But Sydney has something for both of our panelists today. Very good. And congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Great.
Okay.
Yep, great job for both of you. All right. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take this. Congratulations. Thank you.
All right, everyone, let's give them a big hand and Karla a big hand. Okay, next, we have our Stronger Together panel next. It is a great pleasure for me to introduce Diane Smith. Diane is the CEO and president of ChoiceTel, a certified women's business enterprise with over 40 years of technology experience in consulting, voice, data, cybersecurity. Diane's worked across various verticals, including government, enterprise, medium-sized organizations. She serves on multiple boards, currently serving as a board member for CXO Forum. Here, we thank her for being our board member. SIM, Society of Information Management, the Detroit chapter, MCWT, Board of Directors. And please, everyone, give a huge welcome to a good friend of mine, Diane Smith, please.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. We are on the last stretch of this day, and I'm excited about this panel that we're going to be starting. If you guys would please come on over. All right. So we're going to dive into two critical pillars of modern cybersecurity: browser security and cyber risk quantification. As organizations embrace cloud-first strategies and AI-driven workflows, the attack surface has shifted dramatically. Browsers have become the new endpoint, and risk management has evolved from technical metrics to board-level financial impact. Seraphic Security addresses the browser blind spot by transforming any browser into a secure enterprise environment, blocking phishing, preventing data leaks, and enabling safe AI usage without disrupting user experience. On the other hand, safe security risk management by quantifying cyber risk in dollars, automating third-party risk flows, and aligning security with business outcomes. Together, these solutions represent a proactive approach to cybersecurity, protecting where work happens and translating risk into actionable insights. With that, let's explore how these innovations will help CISOs and IT leaders stay ahead of evolving threats. Just a quick little outline on Seraphic, and then we're going to do some introductions. It is a browser-centric protection. Key capabilities: threat prevention, granular DLP controls, electron app protection, and remote access without a VPN. One of the major differentiators are it works inside the browser's JavaScript engine for real-time policy enforcement. And one of the main impacts is visibility. Having visibility into the browser, SaaS, and AI interactions is critical. Safe security, cyber risk quantification, and management. It puts it in financial terms for us, which is pretty important if we're going to be able to do anything with it. It automates TPRM and has CTEM and cyber insurance optimization efforts as well. It's an AI-driven platform with 25 plus specialized agents, and it links risk to materiality and ROI for board-level decisions. So we've got, addressing the endpoint blind spot and tackling the boardroom challenge. So we heard a little bit about that from Tim today as well. We're talking about shifts from being reactive to being proactive with integrated security and strategies that align with digital transformation and AI adoption, because it's coming whether we want it to or not. So if we can go ahead and do some introductions on the panel, that'd be great. We'll start with you, Larry, and move over.
I'm Larry Helms. I'm the VP of Sales for Seraphic Security.
And I'm Renee Gutman, and I'm a former CISO, and I have started my own company, and I work with startups now. My company's called CISO Hive. I stole that actually from a billboard when I was over in Israel, and I like it because part of the job of being a CISO, if you go back to the bees, the hive has a mission, but bees are also responsible for pollinating outside of the hive, and that's part of the give back that I do as part of my organization as well.
Scott Lieberman, Safe Security Account Executive for Michigan. And I actually have with me remotely our speaker, Zach Coser. Zach, you with us? You're muted, Zach. No, not working. Anything we can do? How about now, Zach? Yep.
All right, cool. Great. Thanks, Zach. Thanks for pitching in short notice. We appreciate it. So as always, cybersecurity continues to evolve. And as we already stated, browsers are really the new endpoint, especially with everything being addressed that way moving forward. And risk management needs to speak the language of the business if we're actually going to make any progress at the end of the day. So 2 solutions leading this shift, and we'll go into just a little bit of an intro and maybe some ideas of use cases, some things that you've experienced already, and we'll just go ahead, whoever wants to go first.
Yeah, I would love to go first because Zach is articulate and he's got about 13 minutes. So Zach's got a very specific use case from his practitioner days, and then you get me for the Q&A. So. No, I thought that was great. Any, no pun intended, any quantitative results from that first use case that you want to share? Awesome. Thanks, Zach.
Zach and Scott, are there any, were there any like surprises? Because a lot of times we deploy tech and then we go, oh, wait, it does this too. I didn't even think about that being an added benefit, like maybe tech duplicity in certain categories as well, to reduce expenses, just as an example. Is there anything like that?
That's a great question.
Awesome. What about time and the amount of time spent on these things? I imagine that would put a lot of time back in people's hands as well. Mm. Mm. Awesome. That's fabulous. Sending it over to you, Renee, and talking about Seraphic and some of your past and some of the challenges that you've dealt with before.
Yeah, so my story is going to be slightly different. I'm an advisor to Seraphic, and I think it'll make sense when I get through my story why I chose to work with a secure enterprise browser company. So I've been in the field since 1993. It's when I first got my job in security. I started with a pharmaceutical company. So when you said you can go into any industry, you'll see that I've been through most of them except government. So it was pharmaceutical. What you should know is the first time I went to a security conference, there were 5 vendors. There were 1,000 people, 5 vendors. I mean, that was 1996. 99, I actually implemented the very first infrastructure for Capital One to be able to do online financial banking. I then went to Time Inc. and Time Warner, and I basically was responsible as a CISO for all of their websites, I then became sort of the head of risk for Time Warner, which was Warner Brothers, HBO, let's see, CNN, a lot of people in that stack. Time Inc. was part of that. But it was a big corporation, and I ran risk management for them and identified risks that spanned across the entire company. I was also, so I became the first CISO at Coca-Cola in 2011. Was a team of 5 and built that program up globally, and that's when I first became exposed to manufacturing. I then went to Royal Caribbean, which is the cruise line. You can see I've never kept a job. So for the person I think who was here 30 years, I think, at a company, I mean, kudos to you. I just couldn't do it. So I went to Royal Caribbean and was one of the first to actually identify that there are things on a ship that can make it go bump, and they can. So became involved with the industrial control systems and OT. And then I went to Campbell Soup, where they actually hired me to fix their manufacturing environment. So sounds great, right? Stellar, wonderful. Everything was, what was the term I used? Rainbows and unicorns? Like it was all wonderful, right? One of the things that I was asked to do was implement something called a repeat clicker program. I think that's sort of the term of art. And what that is, so organizations, they run like simulated phishing attacks against, to test employees, to educate them, like, don't click on this thing that's spelled wrong. Don't click on this thing that looks like it's got, typos or whatever. And then they were like, well, what if somebody continues to fail the test? We ran them quarterly. What if somebody fails the test quarterly? So my boss decided that I would implement this repeat clicker. So if somebody failed twice, they clicked on, they got fooled twice, right? Am I making sense? I'm hoping I'm explaining it properly. If they got tricked twice, so they got tricked in January and they got tricked a quarter later, into falling for something that was obviously a fake, okay, obviously, that they had to go through remedial training. Well, the third time that they failed, I was supposed to go and have a conversation with their management. And the fourth time, we never really got that far, but technically the law department wanted them to be fired. And I actually fought for about a year, my boss, and said, that's terrible. I don't want to do this. Don't make me do it. I want people to actually come to my department and ask for help. You're going to turn me into the enemy if we start doing this kind of thing, and especially if we start letting people go. Like, this is just going to be awful. So anyway, he dragged me in front of the CEO and the executive committee, and they basically said, do it. And me being the snarky Canadian that I am, my question to them was, well, when the head of HR fails 4 times, are we going to fire him? And oh, by the way, do I go to the CEO and report him? And you, Mr. CEO, if you failed, do I go to the board? So it's not a good, there are times when you probably should keep your mouth shut. I just never mastered that. So anyway, I had to do it. And then eventually people started gaming the system, and they would tell each other, hey, don't click on that thing. And but why do I tell you all that? Because, today, and I heard it a couple times today, you're not getting email that are clearly coming from somebody that can't spell. You're getting stuff that looks really, really sophisticated, real. And we, when I was running the program, we put a lot of things in place to basically try to prevent that nonsense from getting through, right? We had secure gateways, we had email filters, we did everything to try to prevent that last mile, that user from clicking on the thing that if they clicked, they could probably get lateral movement and blow through the company. We had a lot of expensive infrastructure in place to kind of mitigate against that risk. But I always kind of had it in my head. Now, 1993 is important because, as Tim said, that's when the first browser showed up. All right, so we've been using browsers more or less, and they haven't really evolved that much. in 30 years, they're still sort of what I call the laziest piece of software in the enterprise. They just don't earn their keep. They just sit there and they go, yeah, I'll just let that guy click. I'll just, I won't, just, but we tried all kinds of things. Sandboxing, we've tried. Every time there was a new way that we were going to protect the end user, because I always felt like, why am I blaming the user? And that's the other thing where peak clicking does. It sort of points the finger at the end user and, and says, gosh, you're a dummy, right? And I thought, we can't, this is a failure of us to be able to do more, to be able to prevent these attacks. And I feel so much more strongly about it, having listened to, the very first presentation today that talked about, sophisticated attacks, and you need AI to potentially combat that. Even the students said, what worries you? 0 days. Well, yeah, 45% of 0 days now, and it's probably higher, are targeting the browser. The browser is the thing that people use. I mean, I do everything that I need to do inside of a browser. It's how I get into my SaaS apps. It's how I do email. It's how I do everything. So the browser is the door to all of the enterprise systems. It's the door to your data. So why shouldn't that darn thing do more, advanced security than it's been doing? Well, the good thing is, and if you go out and talk to some of the other folks that are out there, you'll see that there's this thing called Secure Enterprise Browser now, which really it delivers back to the company core features like advanced ways that you can prevent phishing attacks from getting to users. So however it's implemented, and there are different ways, that's what the enterprise browser does now. It has more sophisticated detection and blocking techniques to prevent against malicious URLs. It also will help you, to do other things, like maybe do more in the space of privacy. Maybe mask some of the sensitive information. It will prevent, Secure Enterprise Browser can also help, prevent people from cutting and pasting things and, putting them into Chat GPT. So in some way, it starts to enable, I think, increasing adoption of AI because it's happening. But it starts to give you a little more control so that people aren't just taking everything that's inside and cutting and pasting and throwing it out into the public. So I'm trying to think. I am an advisor, and I've always been an early adopter. You've heard how long I've been in the field. I've always looked for what could we be doing better, and I've wanted to be that champion for getting people to think differently about how they look at the browser and say, why doesn't that thing do more? It should do more. And if it did do more, by the way, could it also replace other technologies? Maybe it will give me some DLP capability, like data loss prevention. And maybe it will help me to reduce the complexity of my infrastructure. Secure Enterprise Browser can be used to actually give people the ability to remote in. It's used quite often for contractors. I have to use a browser for one of my clients. So it basically has locked me down, put me in a place where I can only get access to key things inside the corporation that I work for. It also makes sure that I can't cut and paste and things like that. So it can actually help you from a remote workforce perspective. And so maybe that would also allow you to reduce your technical debt in areas where maybe you've got VDI still running or some things like that. So again, in my role, when I work with my clients and I'm in a room like this, is really just to plant the seed. This is, please go look at this. What I love about the Seraphic platform is that it doesn't actually force you to pick a particular browser. So if I'm a developer and I like X, what developers use?
Firefox.
Firefox. So if I want to use Firefox, right, I can use Firefox. Me, maybe I'll pick something else. So it doesn't actually change my desktop. So some of the products out there, they deliver sort of what I call a captive view. I've always been pro-employee. You probably know that when I fought not to implement that repeat clicker program. Like, I don't like to penalize employees. I'm like, yeah, let them use whatever they want. As long as I can secure it, let them pick it. I don't, The one thing I'll tell you is when you're in the profession as long as I am, you have to pick your battles. And picking a battle over what browser somebody wants to use was not a battle that I wanted to have. Picking a fight about like whether I was going to, not fire the head of HR, but I was going to fire somebody else, for clicking repeatedly on a simulated fish was not a battle that I really wanted to have. I never had to have it, by the way. I never got that far, but I think that my message to you, and Larry will have some stories of success at other clients, because there are, the one thing I'll tell you is that I have talked to clients. So when I work for somebody, I have to validate that they're not selling snake oil. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
There's 3,600 vendors out there. Some of it, I think, is a little weird. But by the way, I love your stuff, too, because I was trying to do cyber risk quantification for forever. So, and that's something that's time has finally shown up as well. But it's time to think differently. Look at the browser and say, what should you really be doing for me in my enterprise? And should you really be, doing more for your clients to protect them? But also still giving them the choice, I'm sort of, like I said, that's a big deal for me. So what I know I was going to say, so people always say, oh, if you do that, you're going to add latency. So, there's always reasons why people will say, well, no, I don't want to do it that way. But I did talk to enough of their clients to know that this is the real deal. So, Larry?
Yeah, I mean, you've got really two fields that you're trying to solve for, right? There's the security and governance side, and then there's the infrastructure side. Renee really talked about some of the infrastructure side, right? The secure remote access. Those are sort of the known use cases for secure enterprise browser, right? There's a lot of dedicated browsers that are out there. Where there comes to a sticking point is when you go to your managed devices. You go to your educated users who have a say in what they use, right? If they're going to push back if you have to swap their browser out. That's where Seraphic comes in. We meet the user where they're at, right? But we also bring the security and the governance to the browser of their choice. We don't require a swap. The security component is really important. You think about what is it that they're after? It's pretty simple. It's the identity, right? It's the session token. If I can get that session token in Renee's browser and put it in mine, I have her access. It's very simple. So Seraphic's security approach is about preventing any of those attacks that try to go after that session token. The last thing we have, the last little trick up our sleeve that we have is we encrypt session tokens at rest on all browsers. So if we are having a bad day, a new threat comes out, we're not perfect, that is able to get to that session token, we've got that one little trick up our sleeve that encrypts that session token so it can't be used. So, if you could protect that, that's where the users are at. They're spending the vast majority of their time, and your data is in the browser. If I can get that, then I've got your data. So if we can protect that and we can secure it, we can address a lot of risk.
So what should a CISO think about when evaluating secure browsing? And then, added to that, how can these browsers actually support AI adoption?
It's accelerating the adoption of AI because boards now are actually demanding out of their CEOs, the productivity that comes from this AI. But the CISO doesn't want to be the Department of No. So if you can do it in a secure manner and, again, meet the user where they're at, you can control the use of this AI. Don't allow private, as an example, private chat models, but only allow the corporate Copilot as an example. Don't allow OneDrive to be anything but corporate, right? The same thing with Copilot or ChatGPT. If that sensitive data needs to be pasted in there, let's mask it, right? If it's socials, if it's code, right? You don't want your source code going into ChatGPT unless it's your version, right? Your company's protected version. You don't want it going into the public. I think the first week that ChatGPT dropped, Samsung's source code made it into the model that was returning and spitting it out. So you don't want that to occur, right? So you want those productivity gains, but you want to do it in a secure way. You want to be the Department of yes and not no, right?
The other thing, I mean, you can decide, for example, on things like extensions, these little productivity tools. So if you decide that you don't want recording, or transcription from an AI, you can do it down to like the user, down to the, the department, down to the
function.
device. So because it speaks to what you're asking, like how do you evaluate? Because it is becoming a crowded market. And I do, the one thing that I do believe is that people should be informed buyers. And I think that for me, again, choice, I didn't want to pick the battle. I didn't want, so for me, choice of the end user, because I figured they would talk to me tomorrow if I didn't sort of give them an interface that they didn't like. But choice, so if that's important to you, if your culture is a culture of choice, of people being enabled, does it work across different platforms? Maybe you want so gain choice, but the other thing is parity, like making sure that it works, that your policies can work across the multiple browsers the same way. So you test for that. I think that there was something else that blew right out of my head. But
extensions is very important. I mean, this past year, there's been several different large attacks that have happened with extensions becoming malicious, supply chain-like attacks, where they got into the code of a very well-known, a very good reputation extension, and that extension, what does it have access to? Session tokens, cookies, right? So if I can get that, I've accomplished my goal. That's why they're going there. It's like if one of bank robbers rob the bank, right? That's where the cash is at. This is where the identity's at. So
the other is management, right? I mean, obviously, if you're going to install a solution within your organization, you've got to be able to manage it, right? You've got to be able to implement it. So the question is, does it integrate, in this case, with your identity system, So clearly, there are questions that will lead to a differentiation. Not all secure enterprise browsers look, feel, smell the same, taste the same. But you have to have sort of a clear sense of, what should it do and how should it play within the environment so that, you don't end up, basically breaking the bank on the other side when you go to when I was also one of the first Gartner analysts. I don't even know how many people, do students even know who Gartner is? Just share with me. No?
I do.
You're not a student, man.
Student of life.
Well, that's the other thing I was going to say. Whoever the lady was that said you have to be able to learn, the answer is you have to be a lifelong learner. But so anyway, we used to say that 10% of the cost of a product is 10% is what you spend going, when you pay for the silly thing, and the 90% is what you pay when you end up living with it for any period of time. So you got to be able to live with what you buy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is kind of on that infrastructure side of it. Waste management is a publicly referenceable customer of ours, all right? And they had a very large acquisition. That's how this was funded. They had 20,000 employees on the waste management side and 10,000 on the Stericycle side, and that was the acquisition. And over a weekend, by pushing out Seraphic, they were able to have those networks or those users connect to those various networks without having to merge them, right? We've got private access servers for the infrastructure piece, and they just push out Seraphic. And if you've got Seraphic, the user has no idea. They just go to the URL on the other side of the network, right? And they're there. They're in there. And over a weekend, they were able to merge those two organizations and get immediate productivity. Now, that was an infrastructure play. What the outcomes that came from that I think you even asked that question, what was a surprise outcome was their CrowdStrike alerts went down 15%. If you think about that, what does that have to do with, the EDR, right? We're talking about in-app. Well, it's the beginning of the attack, right? It's if I can stop it at the point of click, then the downstream impact from a detection and response standpoint is going to be minimized. So it meant a lot to waste management because they outsource it to, I think it's Deloitte, right? And they pay per incident. So going down 10 to 15% actually had tangible financial impact.
And I think it plays into the safe story because I think that you can calculate value that way.
That's a good point.
And if you can offset other costs in the future, I think eventually maybe they took out some other infrastructure that, because they were able to do things with Seraphic and they didn't need, because infrastructure, it's generally based on like how many users. So if you have to keep adding infrastructure, right, because you've added users, but if you can take out maybe some of the usage, then you can reduce your costs as well. So when I talk to people now, they look for ways to kind of, maybe they don't get any more money in their budget, but they can redistribute it differently.
Yeah.
And that's actually a very nice story.
Yeah, and that is one of our use cases. I know you mentioned
Yeah.
before, okay, where's their overlap? Zach mentioned some of it, but some of our customers, that's what they're doing. They're looking at the overlap in a given year against the tools, and then they're able to model out, okay, which one of these is reducing risk the most, and which do we keep, and which do we free up budget, right? Because
Yeah.
budgets are not always increasing double digits every year, so.
That was my next question about third-party risk. So you already answered that. So that's awesome. You were going to say something too, it looked like, though. Go ahead.
Just to further on the waste management example, the CISO was able to then go to the infrastructure folks and recommend Seraphic. They had already paid for it, right? Go into the infrastructure folks, the VDI that they were using for that secure remote access, and reduce that spend as well. So there's a lot of financial outcomes that were in their favor.
Here's my advice to the students. Go take a course in finance. Like, just go and learn, like, just go take it somewhere along the way. Because that was one of the hardest things for me was, I think, learning how to talk biz finance, you know. But you have to be able to do that. You have to be able to talk, you know, money.
Be a translator.
Be a
right?
translator.
What are our most critical assets, and what does the rest of the business care about? They're not necessarily going to be into the nuts and bolts like we are, right, every day of the widgets. And so, yeah, it's learning how to communicate why we need
What's
such
important to them
widgets.
and why, and, you know, how much revenue would they lose if some system wasn't operationally available, and those all become, you know, again, I think of the fact that if your whole enterprise went down because somebody clicked, right, and gained lateral movement, that's a bad day.
Actually, great example, a large global food retail chain in Michigan who couldn't get their line of business, or business people owned the risk and the cyber budget associated with it, and they were having a hard time getting people on board, and they went to their head of marketing and said, here is the impact of a reputational risk if your CRM, customer relationship management system, was breached. And then all of a sudden they got the attention of said chief marketing officer, which led to some, you know, not only strong collaboration between cyber and the business, but being able to really take action on that risk and protect the organization. So great lead in there.
An excellent example of moving beyond the technical conversation and moving into the business conversation. Is there any other thoughts on that with this team here?
Just if you're interested in your business, or you know, if you're even interested in my side of the house, reading the SEC reports or reading, you know, your investor relations page to understand all of that is vital to understanding the business.
I'll just say, I think it was the gentleman from Polera that was talking about like deep fake and stuff. My soapbox is don't blame the users anymore for failures in you know, frankly, what I think should be our responsibility to up our game and provide better protection against the threats that are coming.
Yeah, I would say first is cliche, but be curious. Every organization is organized differently, right? They all have different things they care about. For example, a great example of that, when people say the term, you know, I'm guilty of it, throwing out the term GRC or risk and compliance. What does that mean to you? So really understanding that, because it's different everywhere. And then I'll go a little bit specific to quantifying risk and taking that view of the world is start somewhere. little plug with the platform now does a lot of automation, and so it really gets to where do you want to start, what is most important. Great example, a lot of folks start with how do we protect the assets that keep our business up and running, right? So it's really like, think where do you want to start and make an impact, and then Zach alluded to it, is do you want to start with low-hanging fruit use case, right, and really
So
build
if you
up
do
that,
fail, you don't blow up
and-
the enterprise?
right, and build up that momentum, or do you want to start with a line of business leader? It's really like what's most important, where do you start? But then going back to my days learning how to swim, then just jump in, right? The water's cold, but jump in and it'll get a lot warmer very quickly.
That's great. Well, we have room for one more conversation here, and then we'll ask for questions. So speaking of proactive strategies, which is some of what we're discussing here today, securing work where it happens, and quantifying risk for business impact, leading with innovation and foresight. And as AI-driven security, quantum computing, and stricter regulations are continuing to reshape the threat landscape, what should CISOs prioritize today to stay ahead of tomorrow's risks? And how do we prepare for security in an era of hyper-automation and zero trust? It's a lot. That's a big question. So what do we prioritize first? And Renee,
You know, I'm going to tell you what I've been thinking. It's one of my other soapboxes. You know, there's stuff we get behind. All of a sudden, COVID did this to us. By the way, COVID did it to me. How about that? COVID came. We were so worried about like were our remote access systems going to hold up? Okay, during COVID. Even better, we worried about what if we force a password change every 90 days? How many people will forget their password, and how many calls to the help desk will we get? So we were so worried about like maintaining life and getting people connected that the business took off, and they were like, wait a minute, I still have a business to run. I'm going to go off and make a subscription to whatever SaaS service. So we weren't paying attention. That's why you end up with these terms like unsanctioned, rogue, unmanaged. I would argue that we took our eye off the business and looked out for ourselves. Like, what are the auditors going to say if I don't force a password change every 90 days? So they kept going. They are going now with AI, okay? And I would argue, you know, I talked a little bit earlier about identity. I would argue that there are core systems, core platforms, core things that you need to be thinking about now to enable. Like how do you enable them, again, through the browser? Maybe how do you enable them through a better quantification? Not everything is the same. I mean, this guy was talking about the other day, it took him 3 days to get a passport during government shutdown. It takes him 10 days to do an assessment of risk on an AI thing. Like, that's ridiculous. If I was back in the chair, I'd be looking to really be that true partner and focus on the things that matter to the business, that matter to the organization, that really matter. Yes, hygiene is important. Okay, I got it. Patching, I got it. But I would be really looking at how do I enable them? How do I build the infrastructure? How do I give them maybe a system that they can use to create agentic, workloads? Like how do I help them? Maybe I put in something that's a foundation, okay, that every developer can tap into to get something, versus everybody going and throwing their own boat in the water and doing whatever the heck they want. Now I got to basically figure out where all the boats have gone. No, this is where, coming back to failing, I would rather make a decision, do something, obviously try to get people to use it, but if it didn't work, move on.
Right.
But it's better than having everybody be adrift doing their own thing because there's no leadership.
Well, that's what's key right there, is the leadership component and getting ahead of those trends before your users just run crazy, because they will.
Yeah, and then I'm going to call them rogue and unsanctioned. I'm going to throw some other terrible names at them because I didn't want to be part of what was important to them at the time? No, it's wrong.
Right.
If you don't think your data is if you just simply block ChatGPT as an example, or any of these AI models, and you don't think your data is going into these models, you're sorely mistaken. I mean, they're doing it on their phones. They're doing it. Let's give them the tools to do it safely, so you can mitigate that risk.
Yeah, I would say from a prioritization perspective, as everyone's talking, there's so many amazing tools out there and really, really bright people in cybersecurity to implement them. I'd say the one thing that stays somewhat constant and I would prioritize and focus on is the assets. Because like they're talking, if you know what are your most critical, important assets, valuable assets to the organization, guess what? You got all the cool threat tools. What are the threats coming in against those, right? And then, hey, people, process, and technology. Do I need to implement process? Can I reduce this risk with process and things like that? So that should help cut out the noise. We all know it's just as important what's not a risk as what is a risk, because you can't chase everything, right? And so if you got your eyes on those critical assets, I think that's a way to keep the focus, and really then from there use the amazing tools and people and expertise in the industry.
Yeah, you got some good use cases out on your website. I went and looked. I mean, I think the term is high value assets. I mean, that's really important. You need to know, like, what are those things? We used to call them crown jewels. I prefer high value asset, but
I like it.
And they change. They're not always the same, right? So that's where staying connected with the business leaders and making sure that you're on track with where their vision is going, so that you have that in your war chest and what to work on. So, anybody have any questions?
thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Everyone give Diane a big thank you, and to our panel. We really appreciate it. Okay, so what we're going to do next is, if you could put the survey up, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Guys, real quick, take this. Please fill out the survey. That's how we figure out what do we do next and what worked in these panels. What we're going to do after this is we're going to go out and we're going to do a raffle outside. We got a bunch of prizes, so if you got your cards punched, then we're going to pull those out, and we're going to give away a bunch of really great gifts. And then we're going to do closing remarks after that. So everyone, if we could go outside into the lobby, and we're going to do our raffle now. Thank you, everyone. This was a great event, and we really appreciate it.
No, he did. I think. No, I think it came together. I think.